When I was 22 years old, something happened that changed my life forever. I was outside a nightclub and I got jumped. I was walking to my car to drive my best friend home, and that's when I heard these footsteps running behind me. And all of a sudden, I felt impact hit the back of my head. I turned around quickly and was flooded with multiple blows and impacts to my head. He beat me until I just blacked out. I woke up in the hospital screaming with the most painful headache of my life. Now I live with my brain injury every day, but it does not define me. I will live the best life possible. My name is Kyle Mockford, and I'm a member of the Couch and Brain Injury Society. I would say my childhood was quite typical, raised by both my parents, and I went to, all public schools. I didn't really fit in with the public school that well. I felt like I was quite shy and, kind of stuck to myself, and I think I was a bit vulnerable. I don't think I, had a lot of friends, especially in my middle school. I didn't really have many friends at all, and I kind of just didn't get along with a lot of people. I think it was a really hard middle school experience. Things, really changed in grade 11. The real factor behind it all was joining this class, this leadership class, it was called. It was like self-development before anybody knew about self-development. And I attended that class in grade 11, and it was like a light bulb switched in my brain. It was all about empowerment, lead by example, and be your best potential, and all these keywords that we hear now. But hearing it back in 2005, I came out of grade 11 feeling way more confident inside and outside. I continued that confidence and that eagerness to accomplish and do more. And so I ended up joining the student council. I joined a ton of other volunteer groups. I joined the Red Cross Club. I joined the public speaking club. Way more social, way more confident. Absolutely. It was January 2009. On the day of my birthday, my parents, they took me to Victoria. We attended this presentation on this man's trip to Tanzania and how it changed his life, and it really sparked an interest in my mind, and it really created this fire that I wanted to go and experience this new world and this adventure. I was also volunteering at my eco-village in Shawnigan Lake. I was speaking about the idea of going to Africa for the first time. They were like, oh, you should meet, this lady named Elka. And she also does programs where she leads, a small group of people to Africa and help build these sustainable cob homes there. I had a good conversation with her, and I told her, I'd love to travel to Africa. I would love to volunteer. And she said, great, why don't you join us? Elka said, okay, you still need to fundraise $5,000 to go on this trip, to go on the airfare and to, pay for the supplies, costs, and everything like that. It did not feel like it was going to be a battle or an uphill challenge. It felt like it was a good challenge. I felt ready for it. We came up with the idea. We went to Thrifty's and we said, would you be willing to help us with a fundraiser? Thrifty's has supplied the hot dogs, and we had a little hot dog sale there. And we put up pictures of Tanzania, Africa, and we told everybody what our story was, and people donated. I honestly think that was part of the excitement and part of the journey of being able to go to Tanzania and experience everything that I did, was that fundraising part, because it was like work to do, but it was so fulfilling. And then I guess it was near the end of 2009 is when it all came together, and I flew off and I went to Tanzania, Africa. Elka's vision was to go and build an orphanage out of self-sustaining earth materials using clay, mud, and straw. I do remember putting the bricks on, laying the bricks, working with a local bricklayer. Really kind of funny guy, but I remember working beside him, and I remember seeing it like come together, like it was fully built. Honestly, just super fulfilling, and just a really good kind of warm heart feeling, where, you know, just to be able to step back and see the accomplishment from the learning about the trip to fundraising, you know, for all the pieces to come together. It was, you know, just really self-fulfilling. Yeah, it felt really good. Felt really touched my heart, and something I'll never forget. We got to live on this farm, and they were like super accommodating. You know, they provide all the food for us. There was one time where the owner of the land that we were on, he showed me how to like butcher a goat for us to have like a big feast. You know, I have certain memories of getting water from a well and just, you know, filling these buckets up from a well and carrying one on each arm, and, you know, walking in the sand from the well to, you know, our home, our hut. There was another time where we were all sitting around in a hut, and there was like a tarantula like right above us, and like the farmer like brought his like broom, and he was like swatting at it, and then like the tarantula was like fighting back, and then, and then eventually he got it out of there. So I just remember, you know, doing lots of singing and lots of dancing with a lot of the other members and volunteers there. There was a lot of special moments. I decided that I really like to travel, and I knew that I really like to meet new people, so that in my head, going back to school and getting like an international development program or international business or international relations, you know, degree could be really beneficial. I signed up for a business program at Camosun to start in January of 2013. However, that's when everything came collapsing down. Just on a side note, it is, for me, I know there's still some struggles with like kind of shame around how I got my brain injury. The cause of my brain injury wasn't as common. Unfortunately, I was out at a nightclub with some friends, and I was the designated driver, and I got into a bit of an argument in the nightclub with somebody, and after, they followed me out and they attacked me from behind. So the reason why I was assaulted and a victim of violence is to do with over like a girl. It was a guy who, you know, obviously had a very bad anger problem, and he was dating a girl at the time that I grew up with. However, when I came back from Africa in 2012, I said that I was dating somebody new, and it triggered her to share these feelings. She shared her frustration or feelings about me with this guy, who then, I guess, made him jealous and him angry, because when I was at the nightclub with my friend that night, I ran into him accidentally, and he said, you know, all these aggressive things to me, like, you better stay away from her, even though I was never like reaching out to her or anything like this. It was all in his head, and he had worked himself up, and But I remember running into him at the nightclub and him just saying, "I know who you are, and you better watch your back." And I just said, like, I have no business with you, or, you know, your girlfriend, who was the friend that I knew. And so I honestly don't know why. All I can assume is, you know, he got very drunk and he was on drugs and he had some serious anger issues. But I left that nightclub with my friend. I was just walking to my car. I wasn't drunk, so I wasn't like being, you know, loud and provocative. And that's when I heard some footsteps, like some running. All of a sudden I felt a ton of impact from behind the back of my head. I felt this like bam, and then another bam at the back of my head. I like stumbled and I turned around and I was like, you know, kind of almost out of it at that point. And then I just remember just feeling this boom, 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 you know, to the front of my head, you know, probably 10 to 20 more like punches to my head. And I just, you know, collapsed and I just blanked out. And that's all I know. I woke up like kind of screaming in a way. It must have been like 5 a.m. in the morning, and I was like screaming. I was like, it was like my head was exploding, and I just woke up and I was like yelling. I had bruises all over my face. I couldn't stop vomiting. I was rushed into it for a brain bleed CT scan. I was in the hospital for days. The diagnosis was subdermal hematoma, so bruising and micro tears in my brain, serious bruising in the brain. Tears in the brain, and then it left me with my whole face was blue and purple, and I was only 22, so the brain hadn't, you know, fully developed. So I was in the basement suite in Victoria, and then I instantly moved back to my parents, you know, to recover. But it was like immediate noticeable difference that something had changed in my psyche, in my mind. Before my brain injury, I was very calm, pleasant, grounded, present, confident. And after that incident, right away, it was like I was displaying a different side of me. After 5 days, unfortunately, they took me back to my basement apartment. They knew that I was supposed to start school my first semester at Camosun, you know, only a couple days after they took me back. So they thought, okay, that's probably the best. And they didn't have any experience or knowledge about concussions or brain injuries, you know, especially in 2012. And so they just figured that it might just be best for me to rest and recover there, and then to try and start school, you know, a week later. So my first week of school, my first semester, I still had bruising on my face. I literally wore sunglasses my first week in all my classes. There was so much bruising still around my eyes that I went to class to try and, you know, start the orientation and learn about the different courses or classes with, you know, still bruising. I had the sunglasses on, and so I tried my best. So the first few weeks at my semester was really challenging, and I got over it though, and I felt like I bounced back a little bit, and I got the semester finished. You know, so much had come at me, of course, with the you know, assault and violence, and then, you know, starting school and having the outlash, you know, irritability with my parents, and starting school, it was really all just so overwhelming and so challenging. Near the end is when I said, this is too much. This is really challenging. And I better take a break. I actually had a friend and he moved to Vancouver, and he was telling me about how Vancouver was, a bigger city and there's more to do, and moving to Vancouver could really help change my environment, change my perspective, change my attitude. So I moved to Vancouver with this friend. I moved in with him. It worked out until it didn't, but living with him and then, 2 other roommates, it was a lot and it was overwhelming for me, and it became a challenge. I felt like things were changing in my head. It was like my brain was still recovering. It felt like my brain was catching up from what happened. I really kind of had a bit of a self-reflection moment through that period, living with these 3 other people. There was lots of times where I showed that irritability towards them. I was showing anger, confusion a lot. Like, I remember them having to repeat themselves to me, and I remember falling into a lot of almost mini comas. I remember them saying my name and me kind of coming out of a coma in a way. I was constantly stuck in this overwhelming feeling. So it was friendships were lost, and I had to part ways with them. When I say I fell through the cracks of the legal system, it's 100% true. I completely got screwed over. Maybe it was a month or 2 after they were able to find him and charge him. But the court systems and the Crown Council, they don't see, a head injury. When they look at, a criminal charge or a crime that's to do with assault, they don't take into consideration the part that an impact could have on the head. This offender was basically, brushed off, didn't have any jail time, no community service even. And the judge saying, listen, we're gonna let you go, but we still want you to pay this restitution. He was supposed to pay me the restitution, and he has not paid it to me. And he's not paid it to me to this day. It was very shocking and very disheartening, the consequences that he was left with, which was minimal, and the lifelong consequences that I was left with, which has been, really serious and a real struggle. Well, I would say to Crown Counsel and the judge is to take these type of cases very, very seriously. A brain injury or a head injury from assault is a lifelong consequence that victim has to deal with, and that they should take that into very serious consideration when prosecuting. I felt very betrayed by our legal system and by our judge and by our Crown Counsel, and I struggle with that pain and loss and feeling of betrayal and anger and upsetness, every day from them. From before and from after my brain injury, the difference has been like night and day. For me to go from very carefree, kind of friendly, very easygoing, no mental health challenges, to immediately causing trouble. I was causing arguments, I was swearing, I was being this completely different person. But I also feel like I had jumped back a little bit. I, was this, really happy-go-lucky kind of guy. Brain injury happened. I fell to rock bottom with all this new type of person of irritability, anger. But I kind of, jumped back a little bit into my old self. And so I kind of was then riding on this, person that I still remember from before. It was literally probably more like a year later that it felt like a dark cloud was starting to come over me. And it was like that dark cloud was suppressing emotions, bringing the level of excitement and happiness like down, but also spiking up anxiety and uncertainty to the point where it was unhealthy and unstable. I fell into like the dark years, the dark depression, the dark thoughts. This like dark cloud had come over me and it was following me all the time. And I just was continuously every day struggling with constant depression, feeling low, feeling anxiety, feeling panic attacks, not being able to sleep, a lot of anger. I felt hopeless and I felt lost. I felt scared and confused of like what's happening, what's going on in my brain. So it was very dark time. What's weird too is I never thought about the connection between the brain injury that I had and how it could be linked to all these mental health challenges. And it was like after the event happened, part of my brain, what it also did was it suppressed that traumatic injury. Like I didn't know how to connect the dots to all these changes going on in my head being connected to the vicious, violent assault, the attack that I received, and concussion and brain injury that that was diagnosed after. I couldn't correlate and make the connections to all these things that were brewing in my head. So it made it even more challenging to understand why these are happening, and that's kind of why that dark age of my life went on for so long. It is very unusual and very uncommon, and I don't want to blame anybody, but it could fall back to when I first was in the hospital and first got the major concussion and brain injury, was not having that support there. Nobody reached out. I didn't have a caseworker, I didn't have a support worker, nobody from the hospital reached out, nobody from the police, Crown Council, court, nobody reached out. And then when I went to my regular GP, I still don't know what happened to the medical documents, but I have no recollection of talking to my GP back then throughout those years. In 2021, when I was with my friend in Vancouver. When I moved to Vancouver for the first time in 2013, I never told anybody about the assault, that I was a victim of violence. I never told them that I think I have a brain injury. I never told them about anything. It was all hidden. It was like I mentioned, my brain suppressed that memory. But in 2020, I felt like that memory started to appear. And in 2021 is when I told my friend from Vancouver, when I went to catch up with him, about how I was like a victim of violence and how I got assaulted really bad. And he said, well, Kyle, it kind of makes sense now that you say that, because when I met you and you lived with us, you were displaying all sorts of, brain injury symptoms. It was like he opened up a new world for me. It was like he opened up a new chapter of some realizations that I never knew, that I missed completely. I realized I had to face the reality of my situation. And I started to just Google, what are post-concussion symptoms? What are brain injury symptoms? And I felt like I was starting to kind of take action, and that I wasn't, just a victim anymore. So then I started to research, like, is there something called a brain injury club or a brain injury support? So I just typed in local brain injury support, and that's where I found Couch and Brain Injury Society. And it wasn't until 2022 that I got connected with Couch and Brain Injury Society, and I felt like it was a complete blessing, the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. And they were so supportive and so helpful that they made me feel like, I was in the right place, at the right time. It was a game changer. It changed my life for the better, and I am so thankful for the Couch and Brain Injury Society. I'm so thankful and appreciative. Well, just getting connected with a caseworker and having somebody that, you know, had an understanding of what a brain injury is and the symptoms. You know, she was really able to get me involved in workshops to learn more about everything. I do like some exercising games. So I have like some brain games that I do on a daily basis. I know the connection to exercise more and how it brings oxygen to the brain and how beneficial it is. I know how important sleep is, and what the Couch and Brain Injury Society has really helped me too is not just the exercises and tools, but just the community and the connection of meeting other people that are like me.
CBIS, which many people have now been coining CBIS, is Couch and Brain Injury Society. CBIS is built on a foundation of friendliness, happiness, and using therapeutic recreation, which is using recreation as the rehabilitation tool. So again, it doesn't feel like rehab because I'm laughing, I'm playing. Our drumming program, our music program, our singing art is making sure everybody uses both sides of their brain. Oh my God, Kyle. Kyle came to see this months and months before he would ever come in. He would come in and go out. One minute you see him, the next minute you don't. He would never attend events. He didn't feel comfortable in putting himself out there. Brain injury survivors tend to want to stay isolated, not go out there, because they're so scared somebody's going to judge them. He needed to build up that confidence. He was like, the first day I met him, like a rose, how it's really all tight. And now he's that rose that's opened. Kyle, before CBIS, would not go out. He would isolate in his home. Kyle, now with CBIS, will go out and represent CBIS. Kyle is adventurous. He likes to try new things. I am so proud to have Kyle represent CBIS.
I wish I found the Couch and Brain Injury Society sooner, a lot sooner. I like a routine and I like a system in place, and routine is, very important. I work 2 days a week and continue to do chores around the house. I do some stretching, meditation, or I'll do some food prep. I've really taken up cooking more, and that I find engages the brain. It makes me feel productive, and it's something that I can enjoy after. Going to the gym has been another thing, because it's getting that oxygen to the brain, it's getting that heavier breathing in, and then I'll go on bike rides or hiking. So yeah, I do find it adds up. The best thing that I enjoy out of those is the bike riding and just finding new trails to ride on, new adventures to go on. Riding on a new trail for me feels like kind of a thrill, an adventure seeking in a way. Exploring a new opportunity and a new path is just, fulfilling in itself. It's kind of like a smaller picture of the whole picture. 13 years ago, I was going on trips to Africa and leaving the country and going on these big, magnificent adventures and experiences. But what I found was you can take a little piece of that and make your own little adventure. And for me, that's like bike riding and finding a new path and a new journey to explore. Just being kind to yourself. I meet people who have had a brain injury that are very new to a brain injury and they're super hard on themselves. But I find over the years, giving myself some compassion now, giving myself some gratitude. Having a brain injury is a journey. It's something that can be a setback, but it doesn't have to define you. There is hope for you to still live a fulfilling and meaningful life. The first thing to do is connect with your local brain injury society. They understand about brain injury and they can really help connect you to the right resources and the right tools for you to understand and be your best.